The topic that we're going to discuss today is about creation and science, or creator and creation, or science and Bible, and few of the topics. So I put it into two pieces. One is one topic is about, do God exist, right? Second is the God in the Bible, or the relevance of Bible, right? Let's look at it as time permits, right? There was a statement made by a person called Neil Armstrong, the man who stepped on the moon. Everyone knows Neil Armstrong, right? We have learned, and this is his quote: "It is a great thing for a man to walk on moon, but it's a greater thing for God to walk on earth." Amazing statement, right? Who said this? A person who, the first man, first human, first representation of mankind from earth, who stepped on moon, is making a statement that it is a great thing for a man to walk on moon, but it is a greater thing for God to walk on earth, right? Why am I putting the statement over here? Because, guys, all of you guys have to realize this, that yes, sorry, I think you guys can see me. Sorry, I was on. All of you guys have to realize this, that there is a notion that your English professor would say there is no God, correct? Because for whatever reason, they say there is no God. Or your physics teacher would say that, guys, there is no God. You guys are crazy believing in God, right? Because that is a that is a fashion of the day, telling that I don't believe in God, right? There is no God. But the fact of the matter is that most of these big shots believes in God. We think scientists doesn't believe in God, but the fact of the matter is that a lot of scientists believes in God. 60% of the Nobel Prize winners, whatever I'm saying, you can Google it, you can verify this. 60% of the Nobel Prize winners believes in God, believed in God, because a lot of them died right now. So, right, I want to put in few guys, some of the famous people that you might know. His name, this is Francis S. Collins. If you're a biology student or a microbiology student, or you're exploring on DNA or these kind of stuffs, right? This is a guy, right? He in 1960, 1970 formulated a big stuff around DNA, right? He is also considered as a key person behind DNA, right? And he is a former director of National Human Genome. So he was the head of that organization that run all the DNA projects across the world. Primarily, it's done in US. This National Human Genome. This guy, the head of DNA, the head of this genome, the genetic disease fixing, all the stuffs has been done by this guy. And this is what he says: science is simply mankind trying to understand the greatness of God's design. Now, you have to realize that there are some set of people who say there is no God. But what I'm trying to start with you guys today is this: to realize that there are scientists at the pinnacle believes in God, and this stands by it, right? You can the greatest mathematician, probably John Lennox. It's someone you have to listen to. Very strong person, right? You can. There are a lot of names out there. You can actually go back and read and listen to them, right? Francis Collins is one of them, right? And now he is also he also written a book called Language of God. He's a former founder of DNA Linked with Diseases. See, he believes in God. I've just put 2 or 3 names. You know what Albert Einstein said? A lot of people say, I don't believe in God. Albert Einstein believed in God. You know that? This is what he says: the more I study science, the more I believe in God. I don't think anyone who is living or lived scientifically has been considered as smart as Albert Einstein, correct? He believed in God. Theoretical physicist, Albert Einstein. Now we all know relativity, E equal to mc square. We know all kind of things. But this guy believed in God, right? What about Isaac Newton? Isaac Newton, you should go back and Google it. Isaac Newton was a professing person. He go to church every Sundays. He accepted Jesus as Lord of his life. Now he had a very personal relationship with Jesus Christ. In the absence of any other proof, the thumb alone would be convince me of the existence of God. That is what Isaac Newton said. If there is no proof existing, I would just look at my little thumb, and when I look at it, I could say God exists because of this, the complexity, the fashion, the amazing way the God has created me. Right? So scientists believe in God. I've just put 3 names over here. As I said, 60% of the what do you call the scientific world, the Nobel Prize winners, believes in God. Right? Believe in God, fact of the matter is. So if anyone comes to you and questions you, you should know that people believe in God. Great men believe in God. Right? Now, I just want to play a small video. Let me see how I can play this. Let me just see how to do that. Okay, just a second, guys. Share computer sound, optimize screen for video clipping. Okay, screen 1. Just let me know when you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay.
We can.
Yeah, I'm playing this. You guys were able to hear the audio also?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Now I'll tell you this. Why am I showing this video? Because this is one of a person in ICPF Bangalore, and this video was developed by within the ICPF Bangalore and in our circle, right? So I thought instead of getting some videos from outside, let's look at a video within. Like some of you guys make videos similarly, right? So let's get started. Listen to this few minutes. I think it's 2-3 video second.
Sunscreen. Did humans come up with it, or did God make them first? When we think about plants, we think about sunlight, photosynthesis. But what if a plant gets too much sunlight? What happens to its leaves then? UVB light is known to destroy biological tissues, and that is why us as humans use sunscreen to protect ourselves from sunlight. When UVB lights start reaching damaging levels on the leaves, there are special enzymes that make plant sunscreen. Photoreceptor cells detect this UVB lights and trigger enzymes to start making plant sunscreen. These enzymes are then deposited on the leaves and protect the leaf tissue from UVB lights. And if some cells are already damaged by these UVB lights, enzymes are made to go and restore the damaged DNA. And this is how sunscreen works. Isn't it incredible that plants had this way before humans ever found out about it? So who did make up sunscreen? Us or God? Look at the Creator and how wonderful His works are. How great is this system of detection, protection and repair? Incredibly designed by an incredible designer.
Can you guys still see my screen, or how do I stop doing that?
We can see.
We can. Just wanna stop sharing that. The sharing is stopped now. Video screen is off right now.
Yeah, it is off. It's open. So.
Okay. Now, do you see a different screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Somehow I've lost this control of this, but you guys can. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Okay, I hope you guys can see me because I somehow lost you guys. Can't see the chat, right? Joseph, you can see my screen, right? Can you see me also?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, fair enough, right? So let's go with this, fair enough, right? So we saw a simple video, right? It's a very simple video because many times we just don't understand the kind of complex thing that we are living around. Right? Now, a small leaf has a huge technology behind it to make sure that it is protected from the UV rays. Similarly, a small leaf, if you look at each cell of a leaf, you have photosynthesis happen. You know what? If man is making the photosynthesis into a factory, it will be a huge factory, converting carbon dioxide into oxygen, and oxygen into carbon dioxide, converting oxygen and carbon dioxide into something that can be consumed by a plant, then consumed by, see, a small leaf that we just just wave around is so much complex that we just don't understand the intelligence behind it. That is what that video was trying to show. The video was trying to tell us that a lot of things, as Isaac Newton was mentioning over here, that when I look at my thumb, I just don't know how complex it is. And what we most of the time miss out is the intelligence behind the design. There's a huge intelligence behind the design, right? Let's look at the next slide over here, right? Can you tell me what is the probability of a single protein protein to be forming by chance, right? Protein is a basic form, and protein and millions of different types of proteins combined together, and that is what makes the DNA, right? And millions of different types of DNA that combines and makes the cells and RNA, and that's how a complex biological organism is being made. But can you tell me, forget about all the complex thing, think about the complexity of making one protein molecule. Can someone guess the answer? How much it takes, the random probability of creating a molecule if evolution theory or other theories are right? The answer is 10 to the power of 164. That is 1 followed by 164 zeros. 165 zeros. That is trillion. You just counted that many possibilities. What is the depth of that possibility? Average number of human cell atoms in a human body or in the entire universe. Take about the entire atom in human body, all of us listening, the plants and the trees and the earth and the air and the universe all together. The number of atoms in the entire universe, galaxies and all together put together is 10 to the power of 82. That's a huge number. Now, the possibility to create one protein molecule out of nothing is 10 to the power of 164, which is impossible. You and I have to believe this is what the scientific world, in the scientific world, those who say God doesn't exist believe. In the same scientific world, who believes in God and who have won Nobel Prize, have reasoning, they believe that this is wrong. This is not the way world can be created. World has to be created with an intelligence. If you keep intelligence outside, it is impossible to make a world, make anything for that matter. Think about this, right? Think about a 2-year-old baby, or forget about 2-year-old baby, a 3 months baby or a 4 months baby who hardly understand anything, coming and making a supercomputer. How would it look like? Because you have to realize that there is some level of intelligence for that, correct? There is some level of intelligence for a 3 months baby, It can blink the eyes, it can look the light, it can respond to that, correct? It has some level of intelligence, not zero intelligence, some level of intelligence. Now that baby making a supercomputer, the RAM, the ROM, whatever you call it, the cameras and what do you call it, the multicolor screens that you're seeing, the mobile phones, is it possible? Now we are saying there is no intelligence at all. Zero. It is dumb. And that dumb thing is coming up and making a complex, amazing, whatever we saw, sunscreen, the retina, the eyes, how the eyes works, the sun rays, all these things, complex. We don't want to get into that. It is impossible. But just to give a defensive statement for that, what they put it is that it is possible. If it is 10 to the power of 164, there can be a possibility, and let's believe that. This is not a scientific argument. This is a scientific, this is a view of some of the scientists. This is what all of us who's listening to me have to believe. This is not the view of Albert Einstein. This might be a view of your physics professor, but this is not the view of Isaac Newton. This is not the view of a lot of other people. This might be view of some because they don't want to accept a supreme being above them, so they have their own reasons for this, right? Consider this, right? Think about a dictionary formed out of an explosion in your printing press. There is a printing press in Mysore, right? A lot of printing is going on. There are a lot of words or alphabets are all over there. Think about that. The printing press explodes because of whatever reason. And when it exploded, it randomly formed a dictionary, A to Z, all the words, millions of words that we have today, form a dictionary. Is there a possibility for that? Yes, it can be possible. 1 to the power of not this complex, maybe 1 to the power of 25. It can be possible, but it is not possible. For human reasoning and practically, it's not possible. Mathematically, it is impossible. Think about, you take lot of metal pieces, right? The screws and the nuts and all the scraps that you get in the vehicle shops, and you put all these things and start throwing up to the air. Do you expect a radar watch to come down? Because there is a random possibility exists out there. The fact of the matter is that nothing can exist without intelligence. Say that tomorrow morning the news headlines are something like this. There is a house in Mars. Think about it, right? Suddenly we have sent a rocket, we have sent our own landers. We have not sent a lander, we have sent our own rockets, right, around the Mars, right? And Mangalyaan, right? And Mangalyaan gets a picture of the Mars. And somewhere on that Mars, they find a house over there. Think about a house with roofs, a door, 2 windows. Interesting, right? There is a lock on the door. What would be the headlines on the next day morning? Can you guys just imagine what would be the headlines on the next day morning? Headlines would be very simple. There is life in Mars. You know why that headlines comes? Because entire scientific community know a fact that a house which is much less complex than a human body or a rat running on under your street, house is much less complex, very simple thing, just few roofs, a door and a window and a lock over there, cannot be formed by evolution. By wind came, then some cyclone came, then one roof came, then there was a small window came, then the window was painted up, the door had a lock accidentally. We won't think that. None of the scientists believe that. They know that without an intelligence, it cannot be formed. There is a need of intelligence behind any sensible design. If someone else comes to you and tell you nonsense, you might have to ask them. Just because putting a random possibility doesn't give meaning to this. If a land crawling animal, this is a scientific study I'm saying, right? A land crawling animal like a crocodile, because crocodile evolution community believe that the first life forms was in the water. Then there were fishes. Then there were amphibians, animals that can come out of the water to the land. From the land, there was animals that can fly. Now, fact of the matter is that, say that we'll take a amphibian, probably a frog or a crocodile, right? Now, you have to realize that when you move from one chain to the next chain, a crocodile's DNA has never have a capacity to have something of a wings in it. It's a scientific study. Crocodile cannot have this because the DNA doesn't have that wisdom or that capacity. It can become microevolutions. You know what microevolution means? It can become other crawling animals if needed.
Yeah, change within the species.
Change within the species is possible. You understand? Like, or there is crossbreeding, like a horse and a zebra you put together. They can come out with which doesn't take millions of years. It just takes matter of a month or a year or less than few months it can happen. It doesn't take billions of years to happen. That is called adaptation. That is microevolution. These are all small things. Like, for example, if SARS becomes Mars and Mars becomes COVID-19, this is not where a crocodile becoming a eagle. That's not what it is speaking about. It is within that DNA, within that capacity, and micro changes can happen. It doesn't take billions of years. It can happen in a month. It can happen in a second. Genetical minor changes can happen within the capacity of the DNA. That is not, can never be a reason of such a complex, amazing life structures that we live around. Right? And this is whatever I'm saying, or whatever we're discussing today about science is factored in, studied in, argued upon, and a lot of scientific world is moving to an assumption of intelligent designs behind the creation. Let's move on, because considering the time before us, I'm not planning to. These are all big topics, and we might not be able to cover in one go. But I'm just moving to another topic. There is another argument exists across the Big Bang theory. Like how did all the world form? There was a Big Bang, boom, it happened. Now the question is, what was before the Big Bang? So people say that from nothing, something came. From nothing, or other kind of a Big Bangs or other kind of thing. Where did the galaxies come from? The scientific world would say it has to come from nothing, because they don't believe in that there was nothing. From there, something happened. Let me ask you something, right? In a mobile phone, right? Now, this mobile phone is made by me. The existence of the mobile phone can be explained by me. X created Y, and Y's existence can be explained by X. Every being exists because of an external cause or an action. Now, let me ask you a question. If X created X, or nothing created X, what is that about? There was nothing and nothing created X, and X has to be explained by nothing. It's not possible. There is no explanation given by anyone. Some people say X was created by X. So existence of X can be created, can be defined by the X itself, which is not possible. How can I define my own existence? Not possible. How can I define my own existence? Not possible. Whatever I'm saying is all in the scientific world. But sad part is that we are not interested to learn that part. Scientists believe that. A lot of strong scientific worldviews are around it, right? So I'll leave it over there. The need of an intelligent design is a must for a creation. Forget about a mankind, for a creation of a small pen that you might have. Without an intelligence, a sensible being cannot come. Sensible, meaningful thing cannot come into existence. Now let me come to few thought points for you guys to digest, then I'll move on, because I have to cover some other aspects as well. Now say that I'm having a glass of water or a pot of water being boiled. Right? When I boil this, bubble comes, right? And the bubble comes and the steam comes. Now, if you, as a scientific community, I'm just saying science, people think that science is explaining everything, right? I'll tell you what is wrong with this, right? Science cannot explain everything. Why? The water is boiling. Now bubble comes. So science can explain you why it is boiling and how it is boiling. The bubble comes, when heat comes, what happens? But can it explain why it is boiling? Probably that is boiling because I want to drink tea after 5 minutes, after this meeting, which is not a boiling pot can ever explain. That is why you cannot find answers for all your questions in science. Science is one phase of it. Can you explain who put the pot over there on the stove? Science cannot explain that. Science can explain why the water is boiling. So there are different facets out there which cannot be explained. Can you explain, if science is giving answer for everything, can you explain why do we need economics, civics, language subjects, philosophies in your college? Not needed, correct? Because science doesn't explain a lot of things. And you have to realize that science is not against God. If someone says science is against God, which is a joke for me, you know what? It is telling like, science or God is telling like Henry Ford or, Ford. Henry Ford is a maker of the Ford company, right? The Ford car, right? So choose between them. No, science is one facet of explaining God's creation. There are other facets also explaining God's mind. Correct? You see, one facet trying to explain God's creation and try to use it in a best way. One facet. There is other facets which would try to explain God's mind, what is running in his head, which science cannot say. There are other facets that would say why this pot is placed over here, which will tell you why a human being is formed. Science can probably explain how God created the human being in a right way if they understand it properly, and some of the scientists do that. But it can not explain why a human being is created. There are other facets to that which we have to understand. What is the purpose of life? You will not find a science can ever answer that question. Science can never answer a question called morality, because that is not a facet that comes scientifically. Science cannot give an explanation for what is running in your head. Science cannot give a lot of answers for a lot of all the questions of this world. Science can probably make a coffee and tea for you, but science cannot explain a lot of other facets. You understand? So we have to realize that science is not the full answer. If science becomes the full answer, that is where atheism comes into picture. Science gives full answer, and they call it as scientism. Everything is science. Scientism. Everything is inside science, which is wrong. Don't make into that mistakes. Right? So when Stephen Hawking gives an explanation on brief history of time, he's on a scientific point of view giving his point of view. But when he comes and gives an explanation about morality, he is not a person credible enough to give an answer for that. Don't get me wrong, guys. He is not the credible person to give an answer for that. There might be someone credible to give an answer for that. I'll tell you a funny event that happened. Stephen Hawking's wife's name is Joanna Hawkins. He was married later in 2008 or something, and then sadly he died in 2018, right? Stephen Hawkins, this is an interesting story, Stephen, I was trying to read the biography of Stephen Hawkins and try to understand this part. Stephen Hawkins in 1972, he had I think it was Parkinson's or something. He started and he started shivering. He was losing his strength in his body, and by the 1980-84, he became paralyzed, and he can move little brain sensors, and there was a computer can think what is read out what is print out what he's trying to say, and all these things, right? Now you have to realize that the same Stephen Hawkins who lived with Joanna Hawkins for almost 40 years. Interestingly, listen to this. Joanna Hawkins was a very strong believer in God. Very strong. She used to preach in the church. You probably can find videos where Joanna Hawkins is still preaching. A man on science, of course, nothing disagreement. We agree with his scientific studies. But his views on other areas and worldviews were not right. And he was not even able to convince us on why. Now, interestingly, look at this. 1984, if I'm right, when he was so sick, before he wrote The Brief History of Time and other big books of Stephen Hawking actually become the Stephen Hawkins. Before that, he was so sick for months, close to 6-7 months. And he was bedridden to the point of death. And reached a point, the doctors called up Joanna Hawkins and said, Joanna, he's not going to survive. So now we have to take off these ventilators. We have to stop supporting him. We have to let him die because he's almost dead. Now we see a great man of science might say yes for that because factually that is what it's supposed to be done. But a lady who believed in God says that no. I will pray and I'm going to have faith in a God that he would come back. Interesting, right? Whatever I'm saying, you should Google and read about it. I'm not just making out things. And just because of this one lady, he survived. Science could have failed. Science failed. Doctors failed. Studies failed. He survived because one lady said, I'm going to trust in God. Don't do that. And he survived. Interesting, right? So let's understand what science. If a scientist gives answer for a philosophical question, you are getting it wrong and answer it. I should not give an answer for I'm bad to sing, right? So if I'm going to give an answer to a person who have 8th grade or not 15th grade in Trinity University of Music, vocals, and I'm going to give them explanations, it looks so odd because I know Java program. I know this and that. Does it make sense? No. Just because one person is good at something doesn't mean that he's good in every area of these things, right? Keep this in your mind because these are all important for your life. right? So you have questions in life. We spoke about science answers one area, but science doesn't answer morality. Science doesn't answer the purpose of your life. Science doesn't answer where are you coming from, where are you going. Science doesn't answer your destiny, and science doesn't answer a lot of questions in your life. That is where one facet is explained, which is by God, explained other areas also again by God, is given through other areas God is willing to explain to us, right? So that is where I want to move to one more space, and I'll try to close, right? Jins, you can always just stop me and say that time's up, okay? That's fine. We can do that, right? So I want to speak about Bible and the facts. This is another topic because we have time. We don't have much time, so I want to move to another topic, right? Bible and scientific fact is very interesting, and I'm not putting this much content in this page because this page, it's going to be a huge thing. You can reach out to me separately. I can probably put in all this content over here to send you separately. Bible is not a scientific textbook. It's not a physics textbook. You have to realize that part. But don't take Bible as a physics, because Bible is not trying to understand a physics question. But wherever Bible has tried to understand a physics question, it has been so amazing. Because you see, the earth is suspended in empty space. Job 26:7. You know what? The oldest book in the Bible is Job. Chronologically written order, Job, if I'm right, is the book of Job, 26:7. This is much before, this was a time, you have to see, this is in BCs, old BCs, right? This should be around 2200 BC. This is a time where Hercules believed that the Greek philosophers and the Greek teachings were telling that earth is on the shoulder of a man called Hercules. Everyone believed that. This was a time Indian philosophers, Indian teachings were believing that earth is in the mouth of a snake. Still people believe that. A 5-headed snake, and it is on the tongue. And it is that old, 2000 BC, effectively 4,000 years back. Bible is recording earth is hung on nothing, which is logically impossible. Can you say that I put something and it is not hung on something? Not possible, correct? Amazing. There is another writing, earth is round. Galileo identified earth is round in BC, I don't know, 400 or something, I'm not sure. The earth is round. Columbus proved it, right? He wanted to come to, travel and reach back to the same place and all this things, you know it, right? Earth is round. It is in Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22. It is he who sits around above the circle of the earth. Amazing. Water cycle. Water cycle is something we learn in 4th standard or 3rd standard. All these things. The water droplets goes down, condenses, it goes up, it rains from his mist, then the clouds pour it down. All this. There's a person called Matthew Fountain Maury. He is known as the father of oceanography. You can Google about him. If you open this atlas, right, the map, the globe map, right, you would see lines in the oceans, right? Pacific Oceans, you see a lot of lines going this side. There are lines going all over. Actually, people thought oceans are the place where water comes and there is no movement, right? Reverse flow, oceans doesn't move. Oceans, and logically, it makes sense. But Matthew and Fountain Maury was reading the Bible and he landed into a verse in Psalms 80. He saw the verse, whatever passes through the paths of the seas. Hearing the paths of the seas, he understood there may be paths in the seas. There are flow in the seas. This verse made this guy to go and research on this, and that is made him known as the father of oceanography. And that is where we have this movement of water and the movement of the ocean waters and all these things came. These are just 4 things that I put in over here, right? I'm not just telling that there are maybe other things in the Bible we have to explore and we'll find more, and there are other things which I've not included over here. But this is scientifically interesting. When something is written about a lot of things about 4,000 years back, in BCs, it's amazing. We have to just get it amazed. Let's look at a few more facts before we close today. Biblical accuracy. Think about this, right, guys? We are writing I'm going to write think about the biology textbook. That biology textbook existed around 70 years back, like 1950s. There was a biology textbook, right? And, think about the biology textbook of 4th standard. right? There would be a lot of things written over there. This is how this has happened. This is how this happens. Things like that. Now, look at the biology textbooks of 2020 for the same 4th standard student. Now, look at the biology textbook of 2080, maybe 50, 60, 70 years back, ahead from now. You would see a lot of differences. For example, I remember, I think, Isaac Newton discovered the particle motion. Then, after a few years, someone else came up and said, the wave theory of light. Then, after some time, people came and said the dual nature of light particles, the waves and the particles. You understand, right? Conflict change happens, in a matter of time. Think about this, right? A book that is not written 70 years before and having difference after 70 years. I'm speaking about a book that is written across, not that a book written 1,500 years before. I'm speaking about a book took 1,500 years to write, page by page, book by book, different people, different time, different authors, right? It is written by 40 different people: doctors, fishermen, shepherds, soldiers, kings, all kind of people. Shepherds are not very educated, doctors very educated, fishermen, I don't know how much they're educated, kings and soldiers across 13 countries. You have to think about this, right? People living in Babylon, Iran, Iraq, people living in the the other parts of the world, right? Different countries, 13 different countries writing across 3 continents. Now, in a span of 1,500 years, you put all this book together, and when you look at it, you see it's all knit together. The writers never met because they have never lived in the same time, because it took 1,500 years, right? And they all closely knit. The very first chapter in the Bible and the very last chapter in the Bible, the second chapter of the Bible speaks about the tree of life. The 21st chapter in the Revelation, the second chapter speaks about the tree of life. Written by 2 different people. Book were put together around in 1700. That is like 300 years back. This is amazing, guys. And there is no other book that took 1,500 years to write. If you take any other books that is ever written, any religious textbooks, any scientific textbooks, any literature work, everything was written in a span of 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, because all run by one person. Here we are speaking about multiple writers. Biblical accuracy. It's amazing. Once when you open this book, this is an amazing book you get to see. Another thing that you see about this book is the kind of acceptance this book had, right? The first book ever printed was the Bible, 1455. We all know, I think it's Gutenberg printed the first book. As of today, 5 billion copies of the book has been printed. The second most printed book, or 5 billion copies, and more than 100 million copies every year is being 100 million is close to 10 crore, or maybe close to 50 crore copies, I guess now, right? Now you have to see the second most sold book recently would be probably another Christian book called Pilgrim's Progress. So the second, third, and fourth, most of the books are actually books written about the Bible. It's even more interesting. Now you will see, if you get in a secular world, in a Harry Potter, how many copies of Harry Potter has been sold? We are speaking about 5 billion, and that is probably around 20 million, 30 million, not even 1 year. This is it. The number of translations of this book, 670 languages in Old Testament has been translated. 1,521 translations, portions into 3,000 languages. 3,000 languages, no book. The second closest book is Pinocchio, the children's book. You've seen the nose growing book, Pinocchio. It is translated to 870 languages. No book comes. This is a biblical acceptance. Acceptance across hundreds of years. Millions of copies and still being accepted. Let me get into now the most interesting part about the Bible. The accuracy and the relevance part of the Bible, which is very interesting. How do you know Caesar existed? We all believe, right? We open the history textbooks and our teacher says that now Caesar existed, correct? How do you know Caesar existed? If I'm asking you, tell me, how do you know Caesar existed? Caesar existed because of, as simple as, you see number of copies of Caesar. There were 10 copies of things written about Caesar. That's it. Between AD 100, BC 100, and BC 44. That's it. And just because of this 10 copies, you and I believe that Caesar existed. Tacitus, Aristotle, we called Aristotle left and right, Plato, Aristotle, right? 49 copies of Aristotle existed. Now, Iliad is the, we call it the great masterpiece, Iliad, Homer, the Iliad, we study in literature textbook. How do you know that this was even relevant? The person called Homer existed, Iliad, right? All these things, right? Because 643 copies are existed. Now, let me come to the interesting part. When you take this copies, right? You see copies existed, for example, for Bible, New Testament, in a span of, there are 5,600 copies existed. Now you see, they were not living in internet time. They were living in a very different time, right? Some people were living in, different countries and very far, right? They don't come to, there are no telephones, they don't meet, all these things. Now, when these books were compared in 1900s, it had an accuracy of 99.5%. There is no other book have this much of manuscripts available in the world today, 24,000 manuscripts. Accuracy of 99%. Now, let me close with this one more point because I understand the time is just running by. This is the last point I'll make and close probably. I'll try to close with this even though I have one more point. The prophetical accuracy of the Bible, right? Kind of 1,800 years before Jesus was born, it is written that Jesus would be born to a virgin. 400 years before, it is written that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem. You have the Bible. I'm all quoting the verse in the Bible. This is amazing, right? In the very first book of the Bible, it speaks about Jesus would be born. In the first book of the Bible, it says that Jesus would be born in the tribe of Judah. He would be going on a cord. He would be rejected. He would be crucified. His dress would be put on lot. He would be sold for 30 silver coins. You see, as Zechariah chapter 11, verse 2. There are 300 such prophecies about one person. Think about this, right? I'm gonna telling you guys, right? Tomorrow morning when you get up, you have to take a bus. You have to go to the bus stop near your stop. The moment you reach there, in 30 seconds, you will see a bus coming. The bus number would be 33. And when you get into this bus and you get down at the fourth stop in that bus, when you come down, there you would see a shop over there. And when you see a shop over there, there would be a lady standing in that shop. And the lady would be, selling a chocolate to a person standing over there. And that person, you go and talk to that person. And that person's name is Joseph. I'm just giving an example. This is near impossible. It's near impossible. But you believe me, this is very simply possible. Considering the kind of accuracy of this, 1,500 years, 400 years, you're writing so many things that all has to happen in around 15, 20 years, pinpoint accurate about a person. There is no prophetic accuracy on any person ever lived on the face of the earth as much as Jesus had. There is more evidence that Jesus existed than Alexander the Great and the Caesar. There is historical writings about him, not just the Bible. You keep the Bible aside, there are historical writings. The Josephine, the historical writers have written about him. The Roman historians have written about him. The death, everything is written about it. There is no person so accurate as Christ in the Bible. And the prophecies about the Bible. I would probably want to conclude here because I took a lot of time. Probably want to go further, but I just put a pause over here. Guys, if whatever I'm saying is relevant, I spoke about a God who has to exist, intelligent design. I spoke about Christ and the accuracy of the Bible. I spoke about the biblical accuracy on some of the scientific accounts and the prophetical accuracy about it and the authenticity of the Bible. Whichever all I was just going very fast, you can come back to me. All these things connect together. There is one big question that I want to ask you guys. If this is truth, God has to tell you something. And that is the important thing that you have to ask yourself, and I have to ask God. What is God? If this is all real, if God, you are there, You have made all these things. I want to know what is the purpose of my life in this world. What is that you want to tell me? What is the life after this world? What is that word that you want to tell me? Why did Jesus came to this world? Why did he die on the cross? Why did God even have to come? You remember the Neil Armstrong statement that I was making? The Neil Armstrong statement I was making over here. Why did this man came to the earth and walked on earth? For man to walk on moon is a big thing. But why did God to walk on earth and die on the cross? Why? People like Neil Armstrong is asking this is the greatest thing. God to walk on the face of the earth. As I close, I want to close with a couple of things. What made the modern world? The constitution of most of the countries in the world today is based on the Bible. British Constitution, Indian Constitution. Why do we see a lot of pattern of 10 commandments in the Indian Constitution? Because it is all adopted. The civilization has an adoption in it. If you go to a country like Hungary, I've heard people saying like this. If you go to a country like Hungary, you have cows at home and you sell milk. You know what? You take the milk in the can and put it at the gate and you come home. And the milkman will come. He takes the milk, put it and weigh it, and put the money over there, leave it in that bag and the can over there, and that person goes. In India, it doesn't happen. You know why? Because first of all, if you leave the milk over there, someone will steal it. If the milkman comes, there would be more than milk, there would be more water in that can because you would be cheating him. And if he leaves the money over there, someone will take the money. Because of that, we have a shop, we have a milk collection center. They would check whether your milk is having water. All kind of things happen. You know why? Because why does it not happen in Hungary? Because they were founded on the value system of the Bible that you value human beings. Honesty matters. Morality matters. Right before God matters. That is why you can leave your milk. If there is no milk, they wouldn't put water into it. The person would leave the money. There is no thieves over there. You can leave your house open and go. You know why? Because the civilizations were built on it. 65.4% of the Nobel Prize winners declared them to be Christians, professed them to be Christians. They were scientists. They were wise people. They looked to God. They walked. They went to churches. They believed in God. They were great scientists, Nobel Prize winners. What made the world today? If you go to Harvard University, this is what Harvard University is the best university in the world, right? You go to the Harvard University, one of the best universities in the world. This is inscribed over there. You know what Harvard made? Harvard is the person who made Harvard University. This is written over there. After God had carried us safe to the New England, we have built it's written about the faith that the Harvard University was built on the ground of the Bible. The education of the modern world. You and I are educated. The scientists are formed because the Christian community, the Bible values insisted for education. But I don't have time. The greater other universities you see in the world, Harvard, say Princeton University. This is a logo of Princeton University under the protection of God. Yale University, Light and Truth. These are all hundreds of years old. In Columbia University, in thy light shall we see light. This all the universities were put forward for the civilization uplift. What made the modern world? So I spoke three things today. One is God exists or not. Second, we spoke about the Bible, accuracy, prophetical relevance of it. The reliability about it, we touched about it. Third thing, what made the modern world, modern constitutions and modern education, modern civilizations, what drives it, what drived it. Now things are being changing, of course, right? And we see the changes happening, correct? Now, and as I close, I want to quote statements of two people. One is Napoleon Bonaparte. This man have conquered the entire world. After conquering the entire world and finally he was about to kill, he was sent, this is a quote he made. I know men, I tell you that Jesus Christ is no mere man. This is Napoleon Bonaparte, who had half of the globe. You remember Napoleon Bonaparte, right? Between him and every person in the world, there is no possible term of comparison. Alexander, Caesar, Clemenceau, and I have founded empires. But on what did we rest the creation of our genius? Upon force. We use sword to win the world. But Jesus Christ founded his empire upon love. And at this point, millions of people would die for him. A person who won the entire world is telling me, Caesar, Clemenceau, we all try to win the world. But here comes a small man, a man called Jesus Christ, who didn't even touch a sword, but he won the world. And it is still winning. People listening to me, he is winning your hearts. This is our man, Swami Vivekananda. We all admire him. He has spoken in United Nations. This is a statement of Vivekananda. Had I lived in Palestine in the days of Jesus of Nazareth, I would have washed his feet, not with my tears, but with my heart's blood. There is a story in the Bible which says about a lady comes, she takes up her hair, she puts a very costly perfume at the feet of Jesus, wipes it and washes it and wipes it. It is very precious hair, wipes it. And Swami Vivekananda is telling this. If I lived at that time in Palestine, I wouldn't have washed it with my hair. I would have washed his feet with my blood. Because he is a truth. I want to leave all of you guys with this. We are all mature people. You are all youngsters. I hope you guys are above 14 years old. It is time for you to think. We are not here to buy all the garbages people sell to us. We are here to think the truth and take that step towards the truth. And make steps towards that. This is one verse in the Bible. You study the scripture diligently because the Bible speaks about this Jesus Christ. Why did he came to this world? Bible speaks about your eternal life. Your eternal life is not your parents' responsibility. Your eternal life is not others' responsibility. It is your responsibility. Your moral living is your responsibility. Your relationship with God is your responsibility. Since you heard the truth today, this is for you to go back and explore this truth. This is your responsibility. I leave you all of you guys at this point. May God make you all think through all this what we heard. I know in the limited time, I run off a little ahead. But I hope, make all of you guys think what we heard right now. But as we close, may God bless all of you guys. And back to Jin's